Welcome to the Ward's Way Podcast.
Welcome to the Ward's Way Podcast. Today we are talking with business and industry leaders and the lessons that we've learned. And today I am lucky to have with me Jimmy Harrison with Frank and Jimmy's Propeller, aka FJ Propeller. And we're going to talk today about things in the industry and lots of things going on with the business and also as a family business. And you just celebrated 77 years.
We're into 77 years. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Coming up on 78 years.
And I feel like we've been neighbors almost
since 65.
Okay, since 1965. And you've been in this same block area as well. We have been, I believe, since I was talking to my dad, we have been since 1951. We've been in this same 4-block area. So you've been the same way.
Yeah, well, actually, in the very beginning, it was at the fork of the New River, which is now houses. So there was Delavig's Boatyard, which was there, where they had like a railway to pull out on. And that's where my dad and Frank originally got started. And their first job was like chasing alligators out of the boatyard so that they could, do the work. And they were fixing, painting bottoms and doing whatever it took. And then they just had a little corner of the shed to do propellers, And then they moved down to what Rhodey Chris-Craft was at the end of the street where Allied was.
Yes.
And they had a little tin shed right across from there where, and my first memory was, I think I was like 5 years old or something, and it was a tin roof with wood floors. And I got the job with one of those drills that you crank, drilling holes in the floor to let the water out from the leaks in the roof. So
I'm sure they would be calling Child Protective Services now if anybody knew that. But yeah, believe me, I had jobs too.
Yeah, and then in 65, the building at the other end of this block, was built. And interesting on that was it was when Hurricane Cleo came through.
Okay.
The tie beams hadn't been poured yet, so the walls all collapsed. So the whole thing fell in, and then they had to start over again.
My goodness!
With that one,
wow.
Yeah. And then Ward's was in the back and Frank Jimmy's was in the front till like 1970, I think, right in there. And then you came down here, built this building, and the rest is history.
So we bought this building we built, the one that's adjacent that looks as if it's all one building, we bought in the 80s from Gold Coast next door. And then, you guys, we were on the same block, weren't we? And then you built your new building.
Yep.
Right over there, and then we built across the street. So we've been kind of
following each other
for many years.
Steps.
Yes. And I would say that we probably don't visit each other's companies as often as we should.
That's true.
Considering we're neighbors, I think the first time I went back to your place was at a recent marine industry event, and I was like, well, it's right there. I'm gonna go, and I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed watching some of the tour elements that you had, because I don't think a lot of people understand what you do. Why don't you tell everybody what you do? What does Frank and Jimmy's Propeller do?
So we fix propellers, and so the main thing, we sell propellers and we fix propellers and drivetrain stuff. So shafting and couplings, anything really from the transmission back, that propels the boat. So the couplings, the shafts, the struts, the rudders, the steering, not steering the hydraulics part, but the rudders themselves, the hardware, that goes underwater hardware. But the real heart of the business is propeller repair. So we're fixing propellers from little tiny propellers and outboards up to mega yacht propellers, and really going into that direction even more, from it. And then 8 years ago or so, we split the company into the machine side and the propeller side.
Okay.
So.
And why?
Space.
Okay.
It was the big thing.
Makes sense.
We have a shop in Miami, which does all the machining now. So all of our lathes and CNC equipment is there. So we're manufacturing shafting and fabricating struts and rudders, with stainless steel down there. And in Fort Lauderdale here, we're just doing propellers. So just propellers only. So we stock and sell new propellers here, and we repair propellers, and we repair shafting in Miami. In the two companies, we just unfortunately have to drive back and forth a couple times every day, and carry stuff back and forth.
So we should put in a plug right now for City of Fort Lauderdale to look for an inexpensive development for loyal, decades-long property owners for you to be able to relocate that to City of Fort Lauderdale. Plug. Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, because we need more space now.
Yeah, right?
So it's in the building next door. I've carved out a little bit of warehouse space, but now I wish I hadn't even leased out the whole building, so we could use that space too.
Wow. So now also tell me about your speedboat side and where that comes from.
So speedboat side, so I had a friend, Gary Ballou, and he came in and said, hey, let's stick your sticker on the boat. This is a long time ago, and, to kind of hook me into it. So then it was just kind of following and doing work for him on the race boat and everything. And then one day it was like, you know what, would you like to drive one time, in the race? I'm like, yeah, okay, that sounds fun, and so I did that. And he just kind of kept, the hook was getting sunk, deep, and kept pulling on it, and then started sponsoring the boat so that I could be in the boat, so that I could race the boat. And so that was 10 years ago, something like that. And I was just so grateful and lucky, to have, because in offshore racing, there's two people, so one guy's steering and one guy's throttling.
I was going to say, were you the steerer or the throttle?
I was the steering guy,
okay.
which is the easy part. It's just like a car, to just drive. It was Gary that kept us alive, not flipping over, going the right speed and the trim and all that. And so really, I was the tourist. I was just the passenger. Even though I'm driving the boat. It was more the easy thing. I just got lucky to have a guy who'd been the world champion for, many, many times over and raced overseas.
Yeah, but what an opportunity, and it's good that you seized it, that you were able to do that.
Yeah,
do you still do it?
No, I stopped.
No.
Last time I did, I flipped the boat over, and I'm like, this, I don't know. It was the most mild crash you could have, but we flipped over. It was expensive, to fix. And I was like, who really is...
Wow.
I really like this, but I don't want it to.
How did you just walk away from that? Did it shake you at all? I mean, I can't imagine being in one of those high speed boats and
it was much less than, like I said, it was like the least violent it could possibly be. But I realized, because in the following year, we sold that boat, or Gary sold the boat, and then in Key West, if you remember, the two boats that flipped over at the same time, one of those was our boat. And but we weren't in it. I'm looking at it because I was an observer then, and I'm like, I didn't know they could do that. And so good thing that didn't happen when I was in the boat.
So somehow you were able to do it for 10 years. You never got injured. You didn't really wreck anything. I don't blame you. I'd be like, did my tenure.
So it was good. But also, and I did it thinking that, okay, well, this is a way to kind of get away with an expense for a business expense. I can hide this as, it'll cover as a tax deductible thing. And then one day I was actually in West Marine, and I go up, and the guy behind, I was going for a part, some kind of part at the parts counter in the back. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm following you guys racing, all the time. And then the kid behind me is like, oh yeah, no, how, I saw how you guys did up in Michigan City or something. I'm like, people are watching this boat racing stuff. And I was like, I guess it really is a truly a marketing thing. So it actually was working. And so now I've still got a speedboat, a fast Nortec, and got the FJ on it, and get lots of comments everywhere we go in the Bahamas. We're talking about boats and propellers. And so it's cool.
I think it's great. Cool, and it gave you an excuse to be out on the water and be a part of the very industry that you've been serving.
Yeah, because I love it. I love boats. I love being on the water. I love the whole thing. So I couldn't have found I got lucked out more than, being in the industry that I'm in and in the business that I'm in, because all the boats have propellers. So it's...
Absolutely. Do they need electrical work? I mean, I know
most
somebody...
of them need electrical work.
Okay, good. Good. All right, well... We'll talk. So in your spare time, so in addition to running a business, multiple businesses, and in addition to that, you're also the president of the Marine Industries Association of South Florida, which is the nation's largest local Trade Association and owners of the Fort Lauderdale International Boat Show. And this year is the 65th annual of the Fort Lauderdale show, I believe.
That is correct, yeah.
So talk to me about that. How has that been? I know from a personal level what it means to be the president of the association, but it takes a lot of time. But talk to me about what you're seeing, what's been going on your watch.
Yeah, so, probably the biggest thing is, very thankful to be under the tutorage and mentoring of Phil Purcell.
Yeah.
Phil is a great executive director that we have. His business acumen and his political acumen, is really, really great, to actually be able to be part of and to watch, and to learn from his ability, of what he does.
And Phil was part of the marine industry as a partner in
Westport Yachts.
Okay.
And so
just for the listeners, in case people didn't know where he came from.
And same thing, Phil just really loves the whole thing, loves the whole thing. And, for me, I've always thought of, what's my task, of doing this. And it's kind of the simple way is, when I'm sitting at a drawbridge, or to make it where when people are sitting at a drawbridge, they're not going, look at these boats going by. I'm going to be late. They look at it as like, wow, there goes about 100 or 200 jobs that are related to what that boat is, that's here. And so,
absolutely,
connecting the industry, the jobs that this industry creates, and which is why, like this morning, I was on the economic advisory board for the city.
Okay.
And the purpose is really to kind of duke it out with tourism, because they're like, we're the biggest, and yeah, we're equals, and everybody knows that Fort Lauderdale is a tourist, magnet. What everybody doesn't know is why the yachts are here, and that most of the yachts that are here aren't even owned by people who live here, or are here. They come here because this is the hub for employment, where you can find the most electricians qualified, or propeller people, or painters, or anything to do with it. You go somewhere else, they don't exist. It's hard to get the labor, or the trained, skilled labor for boats. And, this is where it's at, and it puts a lot of people to work here. And the related industries they really go off into a lot of tentacles, into the community for it.
I agree. And I think the association's done a good job with the economic impact studies and really trying to draw that to people. So even when people look at the boat show, I was actually on the website downloading my exhibitor packet, but it was talking about, I think it had 1,300 boats in the water, and it had about 1,200 land exhibitors. And I always try to say, you look at that's 2,500 businesses that, even though those are recreational boats, they represent the jobs. And then each company that has a booth there, they're a small business. They're employing people. We pay more as an industry than other industries that are very competing for the same workforce. And I do think it's important, the association, to really have anybody know that whether or not you're in the marine industry, you're benefiting from the economic impacts of that industry. So I think you've done a good job with that.
Yeah, also what I love about Fort Lauderdale, because I love Fort Lauderdale. I was born here, and it's what makes Fort Lauderdale special. Why are we just not another beach town?
Sure.
And it's yachts.
Absolutely.
So coming just to gawk at them, to look at them, and go, wow, look at these yachts, that are here, and the whole boating center of it. And so it's something that I feel is really important for the attractiveness of where we live. Just like if you go to Switzerland, the government is actually paying for people to have cows up on the thing with the bells on and stuff. They're not really there because of that they're useful as cows, being there. It's more of decorations for tourists, the thing. But here it's more the yachts and the whole boating industry, is what makes the draw, to Fort Lauderdale important. But, unfortunately, we have people coming in that don't care, about boats, and thinking, well, whatever, it's just they're a pain in my butt, to have these boats, going on. It's like, yeah, but you get rid of the boats, you really get rid of the attraction of the whole lifestyle, that we have here. So I try to work hard on keeping yachting and boating, yachting capital of the world,
Absolutely.
And keeping it that way, because it's easily a transportable business.
Sure.
It can move somewhere else, and lots of other places that are, seaside would love to have what we have here as an industry, in Fort Lauderdale. So while, a lot of people work to attract new industries coming in. We need to nurture the one that we already have that's easiest to keep. Just like it's easier to keep an existing customer than to go find a new customer.
Agree.
A lot more expensive to do that.
Agree.
Already have this industry here. Let's keep it, keep it getting stronger.
And what do you think some of the challenges are facing the industry? What are some that the association's working on?
A couple, which is access to the boatyards.
Sure.
Is the biggest thing. So the access can be blocked real bad, by the bridge. We have a railroad bridge right down the street here that is closed, a lot for the train. So it's the train versus the boats, and so the Coast Guard is for, commercial traffic, on the waterways, and that's what we have going up the river. And so we have them on our side as far as for helping. Thank God for the Coast Guard, because otherwise it's just the train, and like the train wants to just close the bridge, it'd be better to just block off the water. It makes it easier for a train to go back and forth.
And for listeners to understand, so this train bridge, which is about in its 70s as well, if my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong on any of my statistics, but that's my understanding. And the way that the bridge works is that it's about a 6-minute cycle to go down and about a 6-minute cycle to come up, or is it a 6-minute cycle up and down? I'm not sure
it's
of that.
6 up, 6 down.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was sort of right. And then when it's down, the clearance is 3 feet. So even a kayaker leaning to the side is going to struggle to get under that. And 80%, 75 to 80% of our boatyards, which is where the economic impact and the drivers are and why these boats are coming to specifically Fort Lauderdale to get those repairs, are upriver on the other side of that train bridge. So it's not just, it's a bridge, and because we have multiple bridges all around. It's such that it's old. There aren't parts to take care of it. And yes, the train, how many trains? There's 32 passings for Brightline plus the commercial train.
Yeah, so there's both the freight trains and the Brightline train, and then soon to be the commuter train.
The Tri-Rail is moving to the east.
The Tri-Rail
corridor
will be coming over. So there's lots of trains in the future, and more trains than it can actually even handle as far as for having a bridge. Having anything that would slow it down.
Storm impact windows are preventing us from hearing the current train that's going by, but there
windows.
is one going by.
We hear them a little more in the shop.
Yes,
so,
yeah, absolutely. We do too. Out there in the warehouse, you'll hear it.
So, the marine industry stands, so there's, the thing that we're working on now, or that the city's working on is whether it's going to be a bridge or to be a tunnel. So obviously a tunnel would be great, having a tunnel that no one can see, that goes underground, and doesn't really impact much of anything, for that. The cost of the tunnel, though, is huge. The alternative is a bridge, and then there's really a discussion of what height is the bridge to be. Obviously, the higher, the more boats could fit under it without having to raise up, which would be higher the better. And the marine industry's position is either. We don't really care, what it is. But the big thing is just we need it. It needs to happen now, because it's not going to happen. Make a decision in a couple of weeks. It's going to be done. I'm waiting on a permit for my seawall. Now at my house, I live on the water here for a year. A year I'm dealing with a permit. Of doing it.
Goodness.
So, and the city has the same thing to do, go through with themselves. And so this is way beyond just a permit. There's all kinds of stuff that goes on with building a tunnel or a bridge. So it's 5 years, whatever, in the future. All these Tri-Rail and all the other trains and the added capacity that they need is going to be sooner than that. So the delays that we've had, are upsetting in how long until we can break ground and coming up with we're doing it one way.
Is there a call to action? We're going to have thousands and thousands and millions of viewers on this podcast. So what's the call to action? Do the members, to industry, do we need to reach out to state legislators? I know it's a Florida Department of Transportation.
It's coming. It's been, the action's coming.
Okay.
And so
pay attention, miasf.org, and they'll tell you what to do.
Well, yeah. So there's really not a whole lot that we can do. I mean, it's in the politicians' hands, right now. But the county really is kind of coming up, is going with leaning towards the bridge,
Okay.
idea where the city has been going towards a tunnel. And a lot of the developers, would like there to be a tunnel as well. It would make the downtown more attractive, from it. I personally don't think that the bridge will make it unattractive, and it won't really divide the city or anything by having that. I think that the bridge option could be a aesthetic and pleasing look, for it.
I agree with you. And one of your colleagues, who's a board member as well, and was a board member when I was there, and the former mayor, Jim Noggle, he's going to be a guest on the show tomorrow. But I remember him telling me, I'm going to ask him about it when he's a guest, him telling me that when he was mayor, at one point they were going to do a tunnel for 17th Street Bridge. And can you imagine if that had been a tunnel, what you miss when you get to go over that bridge and you can see the boats coming into the inlet, and you can look down south and you can see the cruise ships there, and you can see the yachts coming in. I think it would be a huge mistake to have made that a tunnel. You would miss all of that. You would simply go through, you would go under, and yes, you'd be on your way. But tell me when you're at the top of that bridge, you don't look out and say, look at the inlet, look at the boats coming in. Oh my God. I mean, it's hard because people start going 20 miles an hour, and then you're like, come on, you start. But every time, I never take it for granted that we get to see that. And that's an opportunity. Had it been a tunnel, we would be missing all of that. So I think it could be used as an example. So I'll see what Jim's thoughts are on that. But
yeah, and I think that the 17th Street, I think that the community came out against a tunnel and wanted there to be the bridge, as well. So interesting.
I mean, it is. They always say history repeats itself if you don't pay attention. Well, here we are. And I remember it was named the E. Clay Shaw Bridge, and he was impressed that it was named after him. And he said, well, I'm still alive. And I didn't think you got a bridge named after you until you passed away. And unfortunately, he did pass away, but not right after that. But I do remember that. But it's another example that I can't even imagine that being a tunnel. And I have a feeling it would be the same way. So while people can say they would want a tunnel, I think a bridge going over and being able to look down, nobody questions it at Andrews Avenue or at 3rd Avenue or at Davie. So let's just get it moving. But like you said, whatever it is, if somebody wants to do a tunnel, we just need something to solve the situation.
Yeah, in either which way, the freight train still goes as a bridge. Like what it has now. So it's going to be at grade.
Right.
It's not going to go up in the air or go under the water, as well. So there's still that.
Right.
Will always be there, like that.
Well, my understanding was there was a discussion about maybe moving freight west. Is that not the case? Moving that west to the CSX?
That is a discussion, and that's what I think will eventually happen. Okay. But there's a whole lot more that goes into that. And getting involved civically, you start realizing how slow government works. It's so slow.
Right. And in some cases, I think that that's important. You wouldn't want people to make hasty decisions. But on the other hand, I do think there has to be a strike of balance of, we can't hold up an industry, which is the largest industry in the city of Fort Lauderdale, despite what they say about tourism. We're just going to say that on this podcast. And the economic impacts and the fact that we have a Super Bowl type event every year, and yet you're going to want to choke it off because we're going to take too long, I think would be remiss. I have a feeling the city and the county, and especially working with the association, understand the importance, but it's still funding and who's going to do it and studies and all sorts of things. But I'm sure we'll see it, but hopefully, like you said, we'll see something. And it's going to run right out here. I mean, right outside this window, in between this building and your building, we're going to be right along it. So we'll see it when they're done. But hey, that's progress. We need to have it.
Yeah, it's not a Super Bowl type. It's greater than the Super Bowl, the boat show.
That's right.
It's a greater economic impact than the Super Bowl, and it happens every year. So
at no cost to the city.
Yep.
To add to that.
Yeah.
So now also you are on the city's Marine Advisory Board as well. Okay, so talk to me about that. So
the Marine Advisory Board, it's it's non-judicial. All we're doing is making suggestions to the commissioners, of how they should do things, and it's how they should do things regarding the water. So it would have to do with the Marine Patrol, the docks, and safety of navigation on the river. And probably the biggest impact is the navigability of New River getting to the boatyards as well. So we have, something going on now, which is the congestion or the boats that are encroaching into the waterway, or into the channel. And so that's become an issue that we tried to solve through Marine Advisory Board. And there was the communication was very poor. People thought, you're taking our rights away, we're going to stop all docks from being built and all this. Wasn't true, wasn't happening, like that. All that it is about ensuring access of large boats going up the river to be able to get there. Whereas now like the little Florida, area, if you look at videos of boats going around that, it's just crazy, how close they come to everything, so it's a very tight squeeze, and it's just, if it gets too tight, people want to go somewhere else.
So for listeners, when you go up the New River, there are these. So not only do you have to wait for the bridges, which there are currently 1, 2, 3, 4. Or
even 5.
Even 5 if you get all the way down. And so obviously you want to time it if you're a big boat going up or down river. You want to time it for the bridges. You have to time it on tide. Then you add in the traffic. But like you're saying, now imagine, everybody knows it, driving through their neighborhood when people start parallel parking along the road, and then all of a sudden you're going to drive down the road and here comes a neighbor. There is not room for both of you to pass. Who gets the right of way? Well, in boating, it's tonnage. But still, when you're underway, you cannot stop a boat the same way you stop a car. And I don't think people understand that. And you have a tide issue and you have current issues. And so it can be really scary. And I'm even seeing, and you hear in some of the captain circles, it used to be like considered if you were one of the captains that required a tow upriver or downriver, in and out of the yard, like, you were scoffed at, like, rookie, you don't know. And now I think so many of the captains say it's not worth the risk. You guys can mock me all you want. I've been to the Azores. I've crossed the Med 5 times, but I'm not going upriver and taking on any kind of risk to the boat, which makes sense. And so there's tow companies that if you ever drive it, sometimes the bridges take longer because a boat's under tow and it has a tow boat in the front and the back, just to explain it to listeners so they know. And then just imagine all of a sudden a bridge goes down. And now you not only have that boat, but you have a boat in front of it and behind it that have to stop. And there's all these calls for bridges. And, people driving down the road probably have no idea all of that is going on underneath this bridge that they're waiting on, and this boat going into a boatyard to have all the work done. So it really is an industry happening up and down this river. I encourage people to stop and look at it. Yeah.
So it's something, that the navigability is something, though, that the marine industry actually has a little subcommittee, working with people from the community as well, from realtors to everybody, homeowners, trying to come up with a acceptable solution to, how to make sure that it's safe, you're able to get the boats up and down the river. So that's where that's going. Other things with the Marine Advisory Board would be coming up with, so we have a lot of illegal charters going on, which are unsafe charters.
Did you say legal or illegal?
Illegal.
Okay.
Illegal charters, that are going on. And
what makes them illegal?
That they're taking, so the whole idea of captain's licenses, or licensing boats to be a commercial boat is for safety. The whole idea of the Coast Guard, is all about safety, and so we've had several, deaths in the intercoastal and river, here in Fort Lauderdale from people drowning, and some of them have been direct results of illegal charters, of someone who either is taking too many people or no insurance, with people, or basically it's someone just renting out their boat, hiring just a captain to, give the guy down the street, some money to take my boat out so I can make some money on my boat.
So how is that policed, or how do you combat that?
So the Coast Guard now is they are stopping, boats that have a whole bunch of people on them.
Too many, counting life jackets.
Yeah, counting them. They're not doing it with the city. There is a code enforcement boat now that the city owns, and they have an officer that's what he's doing. It's very limited as far as on how often that they're doing that. There are, it's just kind of the Wild West. And so one of the things is to come up with, and even where people get on and off the boats.
Sure.
So it's happening like at launching ramps, which then takes up the space, in a launching ramp, takes up the parking spaces if people are doing charters from a launching ramp. Other people are wanting to launch their boat, can't launch their boat. So
Gotcha.
It's just getting crowded, in the whole thing. So it's one thing that we don't have is an actual legal place where people can pick up and drop off charters, or people that they're going to take on their boat, or the pontoon boats, or, whatever the boats are. And there's no way to, right now, of coming up with insurance. So people are chartering or going out on a boat, and they don't realize that there's no insurance, on the boat. And they don't realize what a bareboat charter is when they're hiring their own captain, doing that.
But somebody's guiding them. I mean, I feel like, are they getting misinformation? So I fly down to Fort Lauderdale. I'm staying at BMR. I'm looking at these boats out there, and I say, boy, where are they going to find these illegal charters?
So that could be getting them through the concierge at the hotel saying, hey, this is, whatever, this little pontoon
this guy's
boat.
Card.
Here's a place to go. And they don't realize, what the impact is. And so we also have, as you're familiar with, the insurance requirements when you're working on the water.
Oh, absolutely.
So that it's anyway, if you're the owner of the boat and you get sued for someone getting hurt on your boat, it's catastrophe, for you. The Longshoremen's Act, it's it makes it double jeopardy, for you when it get hurt on the water. But the fact of the not having when you do a bareboat charter, which is what they're doing, for the boats to make it semi-legal to do. You're chartering this boat, and you're basically signing that you became the owner of the boat for that period of time. People don't realize that are doing this, and by that owner, you need to have your own insurance, on that boat. Otherwise, as someone who is the charterer, I'm going to go charter this boat. That someone has a Sea Ray that they're going to let me charter, and but I have to hire the captain on my own. They can't provide the captain.
But I believe that would be also Jones Act coverage, correct?
Jones Act, yeah.
Longshore is for workers.
I got it backwards.
Nope, that's okay.
Yeah, Jones Act.
And so they don't realize, but where are they signing this? Has the marine industry, I don't say you guys, has MIASF worked with EBA on this, the International Yacht Brokers Association? So who's writing these bareboat charter contracts? I'm really interested in this topic.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. And no, we haven't. We just know it exists and know that there's a thing. And so I'm trying to bring that through the Marine Advisory Board, as well, to get something. The bad part is it comes across as just buzzkill. Why are you trying to, this is fun. We need this. This is a good tourist draw.
We're just saying do it legally.
Yeah, but do it legally.
Right.
Is really the thing. And part of it is not just legal. It's like you don't realize what trouble, what issues you potentially are getting yourself into when you're doing this, for it. That if there's and if there's an accidents happen, happen on the water, and they can be deadly, of what it is. And the liability that someone sets themselves up for is tremendous, of doing it. So the chartering, thing, also the licensing, of it. So whereas you have, for example, water taxi, is licensed, insured, Coast Guard inspected, all of that. And then someone to compete with them just because I got my boat and I'm going to try and do the same thing. And it's not fair. You need a level playing ground for a level playing field for everybody, and to be running a business, to have a business means you need insurance, you need to be paying taxes, you need to be, upfront, just like you couldn't be doing something out of this building without having a whole lot of expenses just to open the doors and say, we're selling stuff, out of here.
Well, and I think one of the biggest misnomers is that is a recreational vessel recreational if it's being chartered? And so there are many out there that would say, for example, you mentioned the Longshore, and the Longshore and Harbor Workers Act defines a boat as recreational as one that was principally designed for pleasure. And so clearly the Jungle Queen is a commercial boat. That's like a party boat for listeners that that goes up and down and serves dinner and is a commercial dinner cruise type boat versus a Hatteras sport fish, that's is owned personally. But then, does that recreational boat become commercial once it's chartered? And the answer to that is yes. If you're going to make it a business, then it does become commercial. And I think that's where all the insurances fall into place. But people will say, well, that's just my boat. But, it's like if you work out of your house and you make your house your brick and mortar business, well, then you have to have different paperwork and different insurance to be able to make your house your business versus and that people will come to versus just working out of your house. Same thing.
Yeah. And so, we're looking to try and identify a location where someone, you can be having controlled access to using a dock, like a city dock, where people could be coming to and doing charters out of. That'd be great. Haven't found that place and want to try and find that, as well as finding a location for commercial loading and unloading for construction. So we have, the mandate to have all seawalls by a certain date that they all have to be elevated because of rising seas. And, anytime a house is sold or any type of work is done, then they can be forced to bring their everything up to code. In the city of Fort Lauderdale, we have nowhere where it's legal to load a barge, so there is nowhere, that to put the pilings on, to put the concrete on, to take off dirt if it's taken off, whatever.
I was going to say the spoilage is also an issue, the dirt that you take out of the ground and where does it go?
So it's forcing it to be done either in Hollywood somewhere or in Pompano. And even then it's kind of gray area as far as where it's legal to load and unload a barge. So the problem just becomes it gets more and more expensive, to do it. Sure, someone can load up in Stewart and drive their barge down here, and it just adds, tens of thousands of dollars, to the cost of raising your seawall, which shouldn't be that expensive to do, and everybody needs to do it. So it's something that
is the city open to it? They just are trying to figure out.
But it's just trying to figure it out, So it's a lot of NIMBY, that no one really wants to see it, So, for example, if there's a vacant lot, it's not legal to do it out of a vacant lot, because of the neighbors, on that. It's not legal to do it off.
Well, somebody owns the lot, so then it becomes
but,
somebody's liability.
Yeah, not allowed to do that,
Right.
And so there are some city-owned areas, but there probably could be something that the city could buy, to make that be a reality, because there'll always be the need for commercial access for marine construction, that's going on.
Can they work with the county, maybe somewhere at the port, or
maybe?
Right.
Maybe they're their own thing.
Well, I think we could solve all the world's problems here.
Yeah,
I mean,
okay.
Well, we could keep moving down the road. What about the boat show coming up? Anything new and exciting?
So far, it looks real good as far as for attendance from exhibitors, is strong.
Good.
Ticket sales are on track for how it's been. So that's a good thing.
It's going to be so exciting when the convention center gets back engaged. The convention center is going to be a part of the show, but the construction won't be complete until 2025, my understanding.
Yes.
Okay.
That's basically
Pier 66, the same?
Same thing. So there's workarounds to each of the locations, but it'll be better when they're done, of course.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course. The boat shows really come up in the past few years, come up a long way. They've really done good investment and good planning with the way that they've laid out the show. It keeps improving, So, it's the best boat show. It's the largest in-water boat show in the world, and it's the best boat show.
Well, what I always say, it's the complete life cycle of a boat show. So there are some boat shows you go to that are super yacht focused, some that are sailboat focused, some that are sport fish focused, some that are, like you mentioned earlier, like a pontoon, kayak focused. You can start from a kayak and a fishing pole and go all the way around in the life cycle to a super yacht at the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show. Wherever you want to enter, that you'll have an opportunity to get involved in boating and be a part of it. Can I ask the $1 million question of what's going on with Bahia Mar? As far as the development, obviously, there probably won't be any impacts to this year's show.
So it's a go. It's everything is a go.
Right.
As far as when they'll break ground, I don't know.
We don't know yet.
I don't know that. I don't know as far as with interest rates and funding and the money part, I don't know. But we're happy with the new plans for the boat show.
So for everybody, again, the listeners, so Bahia Mar, so the boat show, while it's only 5 days, it's a 30-day cycle to set it up, have the show, and break it down. It's a lot, and I think they used to have it online where you could watch these videos that kind of do. I think Forrest did one.
I remember seeing one.
Yeah, where they show the setup of the boat show for the 2 weeks before, and it really is fascinating. I encourage anybody to go out there because when you do get to go to the show and recognize all, the 1,200 boats in the water. There's not normal dockage for that amount of boats. And we do work with the Coast Guard to edge into the water channel. And obviously, as the boats have gotten bigger, we've had to be careful. I say we, the industry has had to be careful with that too, the encroachment on the waterway, making sure they're safe, navigable. But so Bahia Mar, it's kind of the heart and center of the boat show, and probably where most exhibitors are located. But that property is up for development. But the developers and the city and the association have been working together to try to come up with, during that development, how do you keep having a show? And there's been cooperation on all that. And
so there'll be there may be some issue with the upland, where the tents are now, during construction, but that is thought through, and so there is mitigation for that, where there should be the tent space should be the same amount of size,
just in different locations.
Different locations.
Sure.
How it's going through. So the in-water part is
going to stay the same,
it'll stay the same. Yeah.
Good.
So. No, boat show is healthy.
That's exciting.
Healthy. Boat show's good.
Good.
Yeah.
And it's coming up. It's October 30th through November 4th, so that's coming up. So I know that there's a marine industry event coming up today. Actually, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that. It's a networking where companies get to
a networking and
showcase is what it's
showcase.
called.
It's a company showcase event.
That's a neat idea. I that's recent, right? That's
we had one last year.
Yeah.
As well. Same sort of format. For doing that. Yeah. So we're trying to do more different things. And networking is an important part. Of it. One that my favorite, because we do it, but is having the open houses, at different businesses that are within the association.
I agree. We've been neighbors for
show and tell
decades, and if it wasn't because you having that event, I wouldn't have gone over there to see what you've done and the coral reef that you're creating and all the different things that you have and your facility had you not had that. And again. We've known each other for years, and our companies have been located next to. But you don't always get out, and you don't always have that time. Yeah,
and what I think the real value of doing the events at members' facilities, whatever it is just like that. When I remember a long time ago finding out that you did the etching, for the thing.
The engraving,
could do the etching, the engraving thing. It's like, I didn't know they did that. I thought they just do electrical work,
I know.
And so it's the same thing in every company's like that. It's,
Everyone,
the people, you assume that everybody knows everything you do, and they don't. And so, you get people to come in and like,
Right. After all these years, I never knew you did that.
You guys doing 3D scanning? Oh, cool. Well,
right.
Exactly.
Let's do, exactly. Hey, let's work together. We got a project coming out. That's networking 101.
Yeah.
So that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's one of my pet things that I really like to push,
So what's for the future for Frank and Jimmy's Propeller? Anything exciting coming up that?
Yeah. So we're growing. We're going more into larger boats now. So we're ABS certification for welding, for machining, for doing overlays, and doing non-destructive testing, all that kind of stuff. So that we can work. So that we're working on class boats and we're working on larger and larger propellers because boats just keep getting bigger. For it too. We have. We're already in many locations, now. We're more just kind of focusing on here, for now, South Florida, and because we can have the most effect here. We are doing more and more sales, of larger propellers, and kind of pushing that going into Central and South America, as well with that.
That's great.
So it's just kind of growing, and I want to, I'm coming up on my 65th, birthday,
Okay.
coming around, and I just love the business, and I love it. Not so much the worrying about the one little job, and how it is, and and what is this thing going on, but I like having people come in the shop and talking to them, and just
I
kind
agree.
of, it's my life, doing it. I know.
Now your daughter works for you as well too, so you have another multi-generational.
Yep, my daughter and my son-in-law.
Okay,
Is also he's
very
a prop
nice.
tech, in the back, and so it's multi-generational. As well. So as is yours.
As is ours, and as was Jay. I was talking to Jay, family business. There's a lot of family businesses, so.
Yeah. So which feels good, and it's part. Again, I'm just so blessed to be living in Fort Lauderdale, being in the industry that I'm in, and having a family business, like it is.
Well, we are blessed to have you here today, and to have you at the leadership, both of the marine industries and the marine advisory and the economic development and all that you do. And thank you for all that you do for the industry. And thank you for being here today.
Thank you, but I followed in your footsteps.
Oh,
now. You were doing, it was like I watched you, in the marine industry, and watched you, and you were more active than I am now.
I'm not sure about that. I think everybody has their time. Maybe I was a little bit more vocal. And look, I still have to talk. I had to come up with a podcast so I could just talk. No,
yeah.
But I appreciate that.
All you've done.
Same here.
Christina,
Same here.
Yeah. So, but thanks.
So thank you for being here today.
Glad you asked me. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.